continue to face attacks from far-right and pro-imperialist sectors, and in that same context, the US sanctions and the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. What do you think have been the key advances of the Venezuelan government in the midst of these difficulties?
I think 2020 will be remembered as a year of incredible Bolivarian resistance and unity against this hybrid war, which has done everything to bring down Venezuela. The latest attacks coming not just from U.S. imperialism, but their junior partners in England. England announced that they would be sending £750,000 for quote unquote, always the same rhetoric, the promotion of democracy, to train journalists in Venezuela. So they have this soft coup approach, similar to what we saw in Cuba with the San Isidro movement. Despite all these difficulties, the Venezuelan people continue to push forward, despite an incredibly crude blockade, a blockade that deprives everyday people of many of the things that here in the West we take for granted, whether it's toilet paper, internet access, social media, and food. So the question of food sovereignty, this question of the anti-blockade law that Nicolas Maduro pushed through, and now this new National Assembly, which is going to work shoulder to shoulder with the executive office to make sure there can be food sovereignty and sovereignty in every sense for the Venezuelan people.
Danny, the new National Assembly, which is majority made up by progressive forces, marks a key political advance for Venezuela domestically. What role do you think this body can play in consolidating the country's institutions and democracy?
Yes, consolidation and patriotic anti-imperialist unity. There'll no longer be these puppets, these Juan Guaidos to do the bidding of the U.S., though we know that the U.S. under Biden is going to stop at nothing. They'll continue to try to blockade Venezuela, to infiltrate Venezuela. They're trying to break the unity of the sanctioned and blockaded countries. There's 39 countries in the world that are currently under U.S. sanctions. That's anywhere from 1/4 to 1/3 of all of humanity. The United States continues to be the preeminent banking country. There's the supremacy of the U.S. dollar. So now that you have the parliamentary united with the executive office in these patriotic efforts and these efforts of resistance, they can be more creative in forging a multipolar world. I just came out of a Council on Hemispheric Affairs event about the forging of unity between Iran and in Venezuela. These are natural alliances between the sanctioned, blockaded countries. The rise of China, the rise of Russia and other countries can subvert these unipolar U.S. sanctions, not approved by the United Nations. So the incoming nationalist is a sign for Venezuela and all of South America.
Danny, the Trump administration has increasingly attacked the Venezuelan government, seeking by all means to overthrow President Maduro. Do you think we can expect much change under a Joe Biden administration?
Perhaps the tone of Joe Biden will change, just as the tactics of Barack Obama changed, but the strategy, the overall objective continues to be the recolonization, not just of the Essequibo region, trying to use the Guyanese government as a proxy power for imperialism in the region, but they want to recolonize all of Venezuela. So I think it's important to remain very alert at these soft coup attempts in a blockaded country. We've seen what they've done to the Bolivar. Right now it's 1.4 million Bolivares just for $1. Similar in Cuba, where there's been a war on Cuba's monetary sovereignty. So then you come in with these different funding streams and journalists and other CIA assets or some connections to the Open Society Foundation of George Soros. Big money. They're trying to NGOize dissent, and they come in waving around and throwing around all types of U.S. dollars in blockaded countries, trying to buy off consciousness. Trying to give visas and other funding and international platforms to artists or cultural workers. So I think we have to be very critical, very aware that under Biden, those types of attempts, as some NGOs in England today announced, £750,000 being directed to quote unquote the promotion of democracy in Venezuela. And one asks, when we're at the height of a pandemic with over 4,000 Americans dying every day, how is it that U.S. intelligence and the Pentagon, whether Trump is in office or Bush or Obama or Biden coming in, how do they continue to be obsessed and hell bent on the recolonization of Venezuela and the entire planet?
Danny Shaw, Professor of Latin American Studies and Senior Research Fellow at the Council of Hemispheric Affairs, speaking to us from the US. Thank you so much for joining us and for offering your insight. Thank you.
Thank you, Katria.